Good afternoon and welcome to FlossTube number 40. My name's Christine. I am CMD586 on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, follow me there. Today is March 9th, 2020. This is a channel about cross stitch, in case you just stumbled upon me by accident. Let's just get started. Today I've got a little bit of haul. I'm going to talk about some WIPs and some plans and a little bit about books at the end, and also I'm going to answer a question I've had about Alaska that I haven't answered, that I've been putting off answering because I haven't wanted to make a video that's too long. But hopefully this one won't be too long. So let's start with haul. I got my next shipment of 3L threads, Threadworks, and from Trisha, and they're beautiful. I'm going to show you each one of these and give you the names and numbers so that you can find them yourselves. I don't think Threadworks gets enough attention, so I definitely want to show these threads as I get them from Trisha because I think they're awesome. All right, the first one is 1081. I'm looking over there because I looked up the names of each of the numbers because, annoyingly, Threadworks does not put their names on their flosses. They only put the numbers. But you can look them up online by both the names and the numbers, and so I did that because I think it's nice to know the names, because the numbers are basically meaningless. And the names are, in some cases, kind of amusing. So, 1081 is shortcake, and I do believe my lighting is going to show these pretty true today. My husband has done a little bit of obsessive work on my lighting recently. He doesn't have to. He just wants to. It's his kind of thing, and he wants to make it as nice for me as he possibly can. So it looks pretty good today. So that is shortcake. If you weren't here last time, if you didn't see FlossTube number 39, I am doing the 20-yard skeins of Threadworks. So, because they're really economical and it's beautiful thread. So might as well have a lot of it. 1122, Smoking Guns. Silvery, really nice. This is Sophia's Cupcake. 10150, a very edible looking icing type blue. 1007 is Soft Lights. Now, another thing I wanted to say, if you look at these colors you're getting here are pretty good. If you look these up on 123 Stitch, at least, I mean, it probably varies from computer to computer or phone to phone, etc. But the pictures on 123 Stitch that I have seen are fairly washed out. If you look up this color on 123 Stitch, for example, you don't see hardly any color, or I don't see hardly any color when I look it up. But you see that like pastel, like candy type colors on there. This is called Soft Lights. 1007. 10472. I believe this is called Shamrock. And then I'm going to hold these up together because there's a subtle difference between them. 1069 is Spanish Olives. So it's pretty subtle, the difference, but it is there. Shamrock is like a brighter green, and yeah, you can see it there. And Spanish Olives is more dull, more prim. 1040 is Shanghai Nights. This is another one that looks really different on 123 Stitch for me. Beautiful browns, basically. Red browns, gray browns, like a burnt umber color and a tan. Really very pretty. 11411. 11411. Yeah, there. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong one. Soft Peach. 11141, which is where I was confusing myself. Shades of Tan. And this one is my favorite of this batch, 1088 Society Life. Basically purples and reds. Really, really pretty. I would love to do some sort of monochromatic something or other out of this. Red and purple. Gorgeous. Okay, so that is my Threadworks batch this month. Next, from Bendy Stitchy, I got some things from Bendy Stitchy. I got a piece of fabric that is 32 count, I believe, white linen from his Weigert, and I dyed it. So I'm not going to show you that immediately because I will show that to you after the rest of my haul. And I also got a pattern from Ship's Manor called Pirate's Booty. You're fortunate this time I've already got this out of the package. I actually tried to film this video before and I was just stumbling all over the place and there was going to be lots of editing needed, so I've started over. Pirate's Booty, and it's surprisingly quite a few, it's bigger than it looks in that picture. And there's quite a few, there's like 24 colors in this sucker, plus 3 kinds of Kreinik and some Mill Hill glass beads. So there's more to it than there appears. I thought it was kind of a simple looking project. But that looks fun. And then also from Bendy, I got the last of my haul, basically. I got this CrossStitch 2011 Halloween collection. Now, I was only aware of the CrossStitch Halloweens as being magazine-like. I didn't realize that they put them out in like book form. But anyway, it says Fall 2011 CrossStitch Halloween Collection, just CrossStitch Halloween Collection, whimsical needlework projects and more. And I'm going to do a flip through of this. There's a bunch of projects I want to do in this. I'm going to endeavor to not show the patterns. So here we go. This is an ink circles, I believe. It must be. Spirited Mandala. Pumpkins and spooky trees and some ghosty things. Looks like graveyard fencing, etc. Very nice. Wicked Night by the Primitive Hare. I love the Primitive Hare. I don't know that I would do this one just because there's so many other things by the Primitive Hare that I like even more. But Primitive Hare. The Boo to You by Praiseworthy Stitches. There's just a little tiny pattern I'm going to endeavor to not show over here. And that little book you see that has the ghost on it, there's a backside to the ghost, like you can, so there. Probably won't do that one, it's just not my thing, but that's kind of cool. Several ornaments. I'm not going to tell you the designers of all of these because that would take too long. But several ornaments. And there's a few pages like that in this book of a mishmash of ornaments, small projects. Witchy Tea. This one, who's this one by? By Gail Busey, Witchy Tea. Brewing up a cup of witchy tea. These flip-throughs always take longer than I want them to, but I think they're worth it. I think people do appreciate them. This is Happy Halloween, designed by Anita Boatwright of the Sunflower Seed. I've got 2 different pictures. Oh, because they give you finishing instructions. Well, that's nice. And this is fancier than it looks. There's treasures and beads and gentle arts threads. And the linen they're using is R&R Reproductions, which, you know, You can use anything really, but there. In the stem of the and leaves of the pumpkin, there's treasures. Oh, it looks like beads in the pumpkin itself. And then it's just stitched in 3 colors of Gentle Arts. This is Halloween Wreath, and this is by Sharon Pope. Her style is very recognizable. I often like her patterns. Halloween Wreath. I actually want to make a Halloween wreath, like a physical Halloween wreath. I have some ideas for that. I mean, not that I'll ever get to it. But I would love to make one. I probably can keep it simple, right? Another page of ornaments. This one down here is kind of neat. It's 3D. See, I'll show you that one. That one's kind of special, I think. This 3D witch. There's lots of beading by Charlotte Dawkins of Charlotte's Collectibles. I'm trying not to show the pattern. There it is. So the 3D witch. That's kind of cool. It's made out of, it's plastic canvas. Probably pretty easy, but fun. Okay, another Sharon Pope, I believe. Yes. I really like this one, this haunted house. I'd probably do this one. Probably skip that wreath one, but I would do this one, I think. I love that. I'm just a sucker for that, like, Scooby-Doo-ish cartoon haunted house thing. Halloween eyeball earrings. I would love to make and wear those. I don't think I ever will, but make and wear them for Halloween. I have some Halloween earrings that are ready-made that I didn't have to make, so I'll probably wear those instead. This is from Not Forgotten Farm. October Feather Tree. Simple, prim, just a couple of colors. More ornaments. I really like this one up there. And there's a Brooke Nolan. Brooks Books. Very recognizable. Angela Atherton for the Martha Pullen Company. The Spirited Banners. Oh, I love this one. This is by Janice Lockhart of Cross Point Designs. I'm not familiar, but I do like this one. I would do this one. Things that go bump in the night. This one has actually been on my wish list for a long time. I think I may actually have it in PDF form already, but never, it doesn't matter. Recipe for a Magical Night. A lot of people have done this. This is a great opportunity to mix and match with your own threads from your own stash. A bunch of little ornaments. One I really like. This is a sweetheart tree. I really like the sweetheart tree, and that's cute. There's a few. Sorry, covering some of it up that I really like on this page. Yes. Is that it? Oh, no. I think this is the last one. And this one is Kathy Barrick. Tombstone Angel. Here lies Susanna Goose, wife of Isaac and mother of Daniel. As you are now, so once was I. As I am now, so must you be. Pretty grim. reminding us all that we're going to die someday. 1761. It says, I love it though. I love the moth, and I like the morbid saying. So I believe that is it. Yes. So that is it for my haul, except for the fabric that I have turned into something else. So Bendy Stitchy's piece of fabric, I had no intention of doing any dyeing. I've had, I've had some success dyeing fabric, but it's not something I am that's really my forte. But it can be fun. I have a bunch of RIT dyes because one Christmas a couple of years ago, I asked my husband to just pick me some RIT dyes, as many as he wanted and whatever colors he wanted at Joann, and he did. And so I have a mix of different RIT dye colors, liquid RIT dye. And anyway, I got a Facebook alert that my friend Susanna Rosencrantz had made a post, I believe, on Stitch Mania, and she was asking for suggestions for tutorials for fabric dyeing, and I was going to give her a suggestion. I was going to suggest Farm Girl's tutorial, which is really great, and I would still recommend that to anybody. But somebody else put a link to a YouTube video from somebody else. I will link that tutorial below, because it was for a very similar technique to Farm Girls, except just a few differences, and specifically she was doing the fabric dyeing in mason jars, and I'm just kind of a sucker for, you can use any bowl or whatever you want, but I'm just kind of a sucker for dyeing fabric and for anything you can do in a mason jar, and I have a bunch of them. So I was like, I watched this video and I was inspired right that second to get out my selection of RIT dye and see what I could do. So I cut the piece of fabric that Bendy Stitchy had sold to me in half, and I dyed 2 pieces of fabric, and neither of them came out like I was expecting. I was just playing. I didn't really have it's kind of best to not really have hard and fast expectations when you're doing fabric dyeing, at least if you're like me and you don't have a lot of experience with it, and every time you do it, it kind of turns out different. But I'm happy with the results of both. One of them took a little longer to make me happy with it, but I'm happy with the results of both, even though they weren't what I had in mind when I decided what colors to use. So this is the first one. It's showing pretty true to color on here, gray, green, blue, basically. There's the other side, because each side is a little different than the other. I think I'd probably stitch on this side. I like this side a little bit better. They're not ironed, because why? I stitch in hand. By the time I hold them and stitch on them and stuff like that, the iron will have been pointless. So this started out with apple green. And it doesn't look any appley green. I mean, it almost even doesn't look green. It's more gray, blue with a hint of green. But I started with apple green, and I really thought I wanted something, appley green. But the dye that came out, this is on 32 count Zweigart linen. So I'm pretty sure. I mean, I know it's Zweigart linen, and I'm pretty sure it was 32 count when I started. And I tell you that because it makes a big difference how the color takes on, depending on what kind of fabric you're using. So I started out with apple green, or green apple, I'm not sure what they call it. But it came out of the bottle looking pretty darn blue. So it just didn't look green on the fabric at all. And I wasn't real happy with it at all. So I just decided to keep adding until I felt a little happier with it. So then I baked it. She did the in her video, she talked about baking. She gave instructions for baking, but she dried them in the sun on a clothesline, and I don't have any sun. So we're still getting snow. So, in case I didn't tell you, I live in Alaska. I know I told you. Anyway, so I baked it, dried it, and didn't like the color. So I then put emerald green on top. And I like it a lot now. I can imagine that I could use this for quite a few like Halloween-y type things. This would be good for plenty of things. So I don't have a hard time imagining using this. I wonder if the Bendy Stitchies Hildy Yule would look good on this. I'd have to look closer at the threads to see, but maybe. But there's plenty of things I could stitch on this regardless. All right, so then the other piece of fabric. This one was much more frustrating, but I'm happy with it now. So it's a dark purple, a little bit of reddish and bluish tones is what I ended up with. And I think it's beautiful now. Okay, this side. And then this side. I like this side better. Harder for me to imagine what I'll use this for, but I think like something like maybe monochromatic, like a you know, a design that's doesn't have a real picture on it, you know, something abstract monochromatic with like a light floss would look really good, like a white or whitish would look good. Anyway, this started out as wine, not wine Rit dye. All of this is Rit dye. Wine Rit dye, didn't like it at all when it came out. It came out pinky and orangey and bleh, I just didn't like it at all. So then I took purple, which you can definitely see on this, and I really didn't like the wine, so I was fairly judicious with the, fairly generous rather, with the amount of purple that I used. I was really generous because I hated the wine. And then I liked it a lot better. I mean, it still was nowhere near what I was going for. I thought the wine I had envisioned as coming out differently. It just wasn't. It was kind of pink and orange. I was looking for something deeper, not so orange. Anyway, I put purple on top of it, and I liked it a lot better, but I still wasn't super thrilled with it, and there was still a lot of like orangish peeking through. So then I took not too generous of an amount of royal blue. So I dyed this sucker 3 times, because each time I dyed it, I baked it and dried it and dyed it, baked it and dried it and dyed it, baked it and dried it. So the third round I put royal blue, but not a whole lot. Because I liked the purple and I didn't want it to be overwhelmingly blue. So, but now I like it. Definitely less things that I can imagine going on this, but I do like it now. So there's that. That was my fabric dyeing adventures. Okay, so moving right along. What I stitched on. I haven't finished anything. I was hoping to have a finish at the end of February, but that didn't happen. February's a little rough for me. I'm fine, but I had some health issues. I was not at my best, and I'm much better now. But I'm still stitching. I got lots done. I'm pretty pleased with my progress. So let's get into the WIPs. I have 3 WIPs to show you, and 1 WIP to show you plans for, thanks to WIPGO. So when last we spoke, I was working on Doreen Jones' Spooky Halloween. I will show you a picture of where it was when last you saw it. And I did meet my goal. My goal was to finish all of the 310. My WIPGO goal was to finish all of the 310. If you don't know what WIPGO is, it's like bingo. I'll link below to Jessie Marie's Facebook group. It's Jessie Marie's original idea, and just for herself that people were so excited about, she decided to make a Facebook group for all of us to benefit from. And I'll also try to link to her YouTube. I mean, you probably don't need it because you're probably watching her. But whatever. I will link to her anyway. And anyway, my WIPGO goal for February was to finish all of the 310 with the exception of the spot where an empty spot. And I did. And it's almost done. It doesn't look like it's done. It looks kind of like it's almost done. There's 3 more colors that aren't 310 that are interspersed throughout this. And if I find the time to do it, right now I'm really focusing on my WIP goals and nothing else. But if I find the time or just feel like it, this is definitely something I could easily finish this year. This blank spot is where the date is supposed to go. It was chartered for 2017. 2020 won't quite fit. I'm not sure if I'm going to finish it in 2020 or 2021. 2021 might fit. Anyway, it's going to remain blank until I know what to put there. I might put a word there. I might put more like swirlies or something from the border there. Who knows? But I met my WIPGO goal on that. So the other WIPGO goal for February, unfortunately, I did not meet because I just wasn't stitching that much. I got pretty close. This is the pattern. My goal for WIPGO was to finish this sucker, and I got pretty close. Could have done it with a few more days. Definitely could have done it if I had been more myself during February, but it wasn't. So, but the goals are technically for a year, but I've really planned them for things where if I really work hard on something, I can finish meet that goal in that 2 weeks. And in some cases, my goals are too grandiose, and in some cases they're not. And so hopefully I'll be able to meet this goal later on in the year if something else doesn't, either I just don't feel like doing something else, or if something else doesn't take as long as I have planned for it, as the time I have allotted for it. So here is the project, Grandmother's House by Told in a Garden. This was published in 1994. Here's a picture of where it was when last you saw it. And here I am now. I put the final push on this project to get that grandmother's house in, the words grandmother's house, because I really wanted it to look like it was almost done. And it is. There's just, the house is done. The house itself is done, with the exception of some backstitching, a little bit of backstitching. There's not a horrendous amount of backstitching on this project, but there's a little bit of backstitching here and there. The house itself is done. I have to do some of the, basically it's going to look like it looks over here, over there, and just some fill-in work in here. So probably a couple of days of work. I finished with the white, except for a little bit of backstitching required. I say a couple of days. I could conceivably get it done in one solid day, but in a lot of places on this project, you see there's a lot of places like the white and some of the other colors in the house that you stitch and stitch and stitch in that one color. But in some of the other places, there's a lot of color changes, like in the quilt down here and some of the, so some of it's, what's left is probably a little more time consuming than average. So a couple of solid days on it would almost certainly get it done. So that might happen this year. I hope it happens this year. I might just decide to make it happen this year, even if another goal does not get finished, because that would be really great to have that done. So those are two, like that and that are two things I could definitely finish this year. All right, so then March WIPGO goals. So here's my WIPGO board. It's kind of ugly because I just did it for me. And you can see the shaded areas are the things that have been called and completed. The X marks the free space in the middle. Grandmother's house is up here. I did not complete it, but it's getting there. I marked it with a C to tell me that it was called. That means I can go back and complete it anytime, and then I can shade it. Next thing was, the next two things that were called were my Beagle project. I have a C there, and my Jupiter moon. So, so the Beagles and the Jupiter's moon. Beagles, I have a goal of 5,000 stitches, and I'm at almost 3,000 stitches on it right now. With this police course thing I have, and also with my work schedule, I have basically 2 days a week that are hard for me to fit in stitching, which is unusual. It used to be I'd stitch 7 days a week, and right now I'm 5 days at the most, and then if I have something weird happen on a day, then I may not stitch at all that day. So So I've had a couple of days this month already that I haven't stitched, but nevertheless, I'm making great progress on the beagles. I know I will get my 5,000 stitches in like pretty quickly in the next few days probably. And so here is what that'll look like when it's finished. And here it is when last you saw it. And sorry for the hanging thread. I wanted to stop at an even number of stitches, and so I just stopped. And here it is now. So you can see that I am really not as close to finish as it looks, but respectably close to a finish. The first half, the page over here with the big dog, is completely finished, including back stitching. I basically have a tiny bit of the suitcase left to finish, and some work on the smaller dogs, and there's like a blanket over here, and there's a little bit down here that has to be done, miscellaneous stuff. The thing that's going to take the most though is this area up here. It's half stitching, but there's quite a few stitches there. So, and I count my half stitches as a stitch. Whatever has to be done on the project, if it takes up a square on the project, I count it as a stitch. So anyway, and it's super boring. I haven't got to that yet. So this is not going to be finished at the end of 5,000 stitches. But again, this is one that the light's kind of at the end of the tunnel already, but when I get to those 5,000 stitches, the light's really going to be at the end of the tunnel. And this could also be something that I could finish this year outside of my WIP Go goals if I just decided to. So, but the WIP Go goal is going to get accomplished, 5,000 stitches. Okay. Then this other one may be too grandiose. It's also 5,000 stitches, but it's just not as easy to make those 5,000 stitches. But I really wanted to put it on my WIP Go goal board with a significant goal, because this is something that I'll never finish. I mean, probably I'll never finish. I'm not Jessie Marie, right? She takes these incredibly large heights, and other people do too, that it's like, that you can't believe it will ever get done, and she gets them done. And not me. That's why Heids and Haid type things are just probably not really for me. So this is not a very good picture. I think this is a freebie once upon a time. Yeah, it was a freebie. Jupiter's Moon. 525 by 489 stitches, 90 colors. So it's not small. But you know, I really enjoy working on this, but it is slower. It's slower than average work. So I think 5,000 stitches is not reasonable. But I'm just going to stitch away on it throughout the month of March and get as much done as I can. I really wanted to give myself a really big goal on it so that I could see progress. I am using, on this one, I am using Blitz Stitch's method, his diagonal parking method. Which I just love. I get a little tangling going on the threads. That's okay. They're untangleable, and they're cuttable if they're not untangleable. At the end, they're getting tangled. Okay, oops. So ignore, there's a little stitching up here that needs to come out. I started with a different method, and theoretically it's in the right place, so it may not have to come out, which is why I haven't taken it out. But I'll take it out if I eventually, if I get there and it's not quite right, which is likely. So this is on 22 count. Yes, 22 count Zweigart Ada, which I think is a good thing to stitch. If you want to do full cross, 1/1 full cross on 22 count Ada is quite nice for Haid type things. Oh my God. So I haven't worked on this yet, so I'm not going to show you where it was when last you saw it, because this is where it was when last you saw it. But I am in this corner down here using Blitz Stitch's diagonal parking method, which is still 100 stitches. It's just you do it in kind of a rhombus shape because you're working on the diagonal. And I love his method. I will try to remember to link below to Blitz Stitch. He's an awesome guy, and his diagonal parking method is awesome. And just brown with a little bit of reddish in there. I love this though. It's never gonna get done, but I just, when I work on it, when I'm feeling it, it's just very like meditative. It doesn't make a picture. I just stitch away. I can see progress. I just enjoy myself. It's not difficult. It is a little time consuming, a little more time consuming than other things. So I really doubt I'm going to get those 5,000 stitches in. But I will make a note of whatever stitches I do get done during the end of March. And, you know, maybe I'll squeeze in the rest of the 5,000 at, you know, some point during the year if I want to, if I don't feel like doing something else. But, so that is it for my WIPs. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about books. I've been reading quite a bit. I'm reading a lot of Robert Parker. I've talked about that before. I won't go on about that. I've read several more Spencer novels. I read some of his westerns. I'm a fan. He's dead, unfortunately. They're now being written by somebody else. I have not yet, because I'm reading all of his stuff in order. So I have not yet got to the ones that were not written by him. There is, you might be interested to know, a Netflix movie. I mean, it's not a Netflix movie, I don't think, but a movie on Netflix, brand new, with Mark Wahlberg, based very, very loosely, as far as I can tell from the previews. I haven't watched it, on the Spencer character. Don't watch that and then read the books expecting it to be anything like that, because I haven't watched it, but from looking at the previews, it looks like it might be a fun movie, but it really does not look like it's going to resemble remotely the character that I'm familiar with and some other people might be familiar with from the books. So, anyway, I've been reading those. I also read the first 3 October Faction graphic novels. Again, there's a Netflix series called the October Faction, and I found out it was based on graphic novels. So I checked out the first 3 of October Faction and from the library, and it was I really enjoyed them. I've also now watched the first couple of episodes of October Faction. Very, very different from the graphic novels. Enjoyed them both. I really, really enjoyed the graphic novels and was sort of disappointed when I realized that the series was going to be extremely different. It does bear some resemblance. There are some good differences, like it's a lot more diverse, which I really appreciate. Although there's some good stuff there's some good representation in the graphic novels. The show is a little extra diverse. But so I'm enjoying the show. I've only watched a couple episodes of it, but the two things are like very, very different from each other. And the other thing I read this since last we spoke, I read Salem's Lot, which I have picked up many times in my life and started and not finished, and I finally got to it and actually read it, and it's good. It's dated. A lot of Stephen King's work I find is good but dated, meaning it just doesn't have the longevity. Like you read it and you're like, this really feels like the time and the sensibilities of when it was written, and it doesn't feel super relevant because of that. But that's okay. As a person who's very just interested in literature in general, like I'm okay with that. That's part of what I'm reading for, you know. I don't know if that makes sense, but it doesn't bother me too much. It bothers me a little bit, but I accept that. And so Salem's Lot is good-ish. It's dated. It's entertaining. It's well written. Even though Salem's Lot was early in his career, it was published in 1975. His writing was good. Not as good as it became at some point, although recently he's gone downhill a little bit. But his writing was good, and his characters are interesting. There is a lot of homophobia in the book. I'm not making a judgment about Stephen King's being homophobic. I don't believe he is, based on his much more recent works, I don't believe that Stephen King is homophobic. There's a lot of homophobia in the book, and that may be something that he's also evolved on, but I think it was largely just a reflection of the time. And I think I'm happy to say that in a lot of cases, in most cases, the homophobia in the book is, we're not supposed to like it. We're not supposed to sympathize with it. You know, these are characters that are uneducated and close-minded and making homophobic statements that are really like this stuff would not fly now, you know, like really bad. And it's definitely, you know, a product of its time. But so that was hard for me to read as much of there was in that. It seemed much more dramatic and noticeable than any little bits of homophobia I might have noticed in his other works that I've read. I know that some of it's there in other books, but not like this. So just be forewarned that you may be upset by some of the language in the book in regards to that. There's some mild racism, but you know, again, we're not supposed to like those characters, so it's like I don't feel like it's Stephen King's homophobic racist, you know. So, but it is bothersome. So just hard to read some of that stuff in the time that we live in that's so different from the 1970s. Then I did get all of these are sort of TV related too. So then I got the 1979 TV miniseries, the 2-part miniseries they made of Salem's Lot. I again got it from the library. I had to get it from an out-of-town library, but I was able to get it from the library. Thank goodness I didn't have to pay for it. You can rent it on Amazon Prime, but if you can get it for free, get it for free because it's bad. It's entertaining bad, but it is bad. There is a lot of just stuff in it that's, you know, supposed to be spooky, supposed to be whatever, and it's just silly because, you know, it was in 1979 and it was a TV miniseries, and, you know, the budget was probably not super high, and, well, although it couldn't have been terribly low either, but it wasn't super high, I'm sure. And so as a result, it's not terrifically scary. It's more funny than scary, but we did enjoy watching it. We had a good laugh watching it regardless. So that is it for reading. Now I'm going to try to talk a little bit about Alaska. I'm going to try to keep it a little bit brief. I was asked what's good about living in Alaska, because the last time I spoke about Alaska, I was talking about, to be fair to myself, I was answering a question about what's hard to come by in Alaska. You know, what's more expensive, what's harder to get in Alaska. And there's a lot of disadvantages to living in Alaska, but there are a lot of good things too. And I was asked what I like about living in Alaska. And, you know, I wouldn't be here if I didn't love it. I won't be here forever because I just don't think that this is a great place for older people to live, like old people. So as my husband and I age, ultimately, I don't want to be dealing with a lot of like snow shoveling and slipping and falling on ice, and I'd like to be some place where like the medical facilities are a little bit better and stuff like that. So living in the capital, it's not so bad, but you know, we're not going to live here forever. But there are a lot of good things about living in Alaska. I came up here to go to college because at the time, the out-of-state tuition at UAF in Fairbanks was cheaper than the cheapest in-state tuition in California where I was growing up, and frankly, I just wanted to get as far away as possible. I came up here with a somewhat typical teenage vision of basically getting away and doing something that was totally different, and I managed to do that. And I've for the most part been here since. Oddly enough, I gave birth to my son in San Diego in the same hospital I was born in, but we only lived in San Diego for 4 months. We lived in San Diego for longer than 4 months, a little over a year. We moved down there, got married on our way down there, and got pregnant immediately, gave birth to our son. I gave birth to it. There was no we. To it. To my little monster. And we, in the same hospital I was born in, weirdly, and then we were there until our son was 4 months old, and we were kind of itching to get back to Alaska, and then we moved back up here. And we have been in Alaska ever since. Anchorage, then Wasilla, and now Juneau for the bulk of that time. So, what's good about Alaska? Well, some pretty obvious things and some not so obvious things. Start with the obvious, just the nature. Alaska is sparsely populated. Outside of Anchorage, Alaska is sparsely populated. We live in Juneau, the capital of Alaska, and it is I believe it is the third largest city in Alaska. Anchorage has more than half the population, and it looks like a big ugly city. And then Fairbanks it used to have about 70,000. I don't know what the population is now, but that's by far the second largest city. And then Juneau has 30-some thousand. I think we're approaching 40,000 at this point. We used to be closer to 30,000, and I think we're like 37 or 38,000. We're about to do the census, so we might find out. But it's a decent-sized town. Where I live, it's not an island, but it's like an island in that there are no roads. It's on the mainland, but there are no roads that go anywhere. So you have to get out of Juneau to go somewhere else. There's no way to drive. You have to get on an airplane or get on a ferry, or some other type of boat. Right now it's a little harder to talk nicely about Alaska because we've got some political and economic things that are happening that are unpleasant, a little scary. I might talk about those in another video, but right now I want to focus on the positive. So, isolated community, but because it's so isolated, we have more conveniences than the average town of this size, because we can't drive an hour away to go to Costco. Costco has to be here. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but there is a captive audience here of a certain size. And so we do get, several years ago, we got a Home Depot, which is right next to the Costco. And, we have some decent facilities. We're fairly self-contained. We have several grocery stores. We have organic sections. We have more things than a town of this size might have in the lower 48, because it might be expected that you would just drive over to the next place to go to get your stuff. It's nice and it's self-contained, and there's no roads in or out of this particular place, which is inconvenient and makes travel expensive. It's mainly why I don't go to a lot of stitching retreats and stuff, is because they're expensive to get to. But it also makes it just kind of a compact place. You know, it's the kind of place where you go to the grocery store, you go to a movie theater. So we have a few. And, you know, you're likely to a restaurant, you're very likely to see people you know and have people to say hi to. I went to breakfast at a restaurant with my husband the other day, and the wife of his best friend was there having breakfast with another lady, and we said hi to her, and that happens almost every time you go somewhere in this town. But it's big enough that you don't feel like everybody's in your business and everybody knows you. And anyway, it's the nature, of course, the number one thing that people say about Alaska, and it really is the reason to be here. The air is clean. The sky is blue. I know that sounds silly, but I lived in San Diego, and I always thought the sky was pretty clean. The air was pretty clean there. I mean, obviously there was pollution, but I didn't see it. And when I would go a couple hours north to LA, I would be like, oh, this is dirty. This is smoggy. You know, this is awful. I wouldn't want to live here. One of the first things I noticed when I moved to Fairbanks was that the sky was actually blue. My first night in Fairbanks when it actually got dark. It got dark pretty late because it was August, but it did get dark, and I was still up, and I looked at the sky, and I could not believe the shade of blue it was. It was actual blue. I thought I'd seen blue sky before. It was like this color. I thought I'd seen blue sky before at night, but the sky in San Diego is, now this is in the 90s, and things may have changed, gotten worse, gotten better, whatever, I don't know. California's made a lot of efforts towards controlling air pollution and stuff in recent decades, so maybe better, but the sky in San Diego is like a darker version of this at night. It's purple because of the air pollution. So it's cleaner, the air is cleaner, the air quality is better. We can have seasonal issues, like last summer got pretty bad. The air quality got pretty bad with some forest fires that are not here, but the smoke was drifting down to us, and it was hazardous. Not as hazardous as many places, but hazardous. And but that's like an isolated thing. Up in Fairbanks, you can have a wintertime situation. Forget what they call it, but it's basically where it gets so cold that the car exhaust and stuff like that, and the fumes from like wood burning stoves and things like that, they can't rise, and so the stuff comes out of the car and it just sits there, and that becomes very hazardous for people to breathe when it gets super duper cold in Fairbanks. But in general, outside of these situational times, the air is clean and the scenery is like right here, like the mountains in Juneau. Like they look like they're just right there. You're right at the foothills, and the animals are close. I am not a particularly outdoorsy person. I'm really not actually very much of an outdoorsy person at all. Most of the things I want to do are inside. I want to cook, I want to read, I want to cross stitch, I want to play board games. Like all of those are indoor things. But I still appreciate the nature, and the animals can be scary, but I appreciate them. We have, in this town, we have a fair number of black bears. We have wolves, although you don't see them very often. We have wolves. We have porcupine. We don't have skunks. Every time I think I smell a skunk, it's because somebody's smoking pot. We don't have skunks. We have porcupines. We have eagles. We have ravens. We have bears. And I'm talking about in my little area, we have the occasional moose. They are here. They do exist for real here in Juneau, but most of the time when people say they saw a moose, we think they've been drinking, because you don't really see them here. But they are here. Lots of eagles and ravens. Ravens are very entertaining. Big, black, bossy birds. and the only thing that bothers me are the bears, because they're a little scary. We do get bears like wandering into our yard, through our neighborhoods, etc. You do have to watch out. Black bears are not known to be aggressive in general, but they can be plenty scary if you startle them or whatever, or if you get between a mama and her cubs and that sort of thing. When I lived in Wasilla, we had a moose issue. We had a family of moose basically living in our yard for the winter, and you can't really do anything about it. And moose, they look like big horses, but they can be aggressive. They can hurt you. Not many people get hurt by moose, because in Alaska we know better. We know they're not horses, and we know to watch out for them and stay away from them, and don't get between the mother and the child. But we had a family, 2 adults and a baby, that were living in our yard one winter in Wasilla, and it was beautiful. I took lots of pictures. If I thought I could call those pictures up quickly, I would share them with you, but it was 15 years ago, and I'm not sure what computer I have those pictures on, etc. And we would have to, I had a small child, and we'd have to like look out our window. I'd be like, walk out my front door, look all around me, Is there a moose here? You know, oh, there's the moose, go back inside. We'll just have to wait a while. My dad came to visit us, and he was like, I went, you know, I had told him about the moose, and I'd said, stay away. I came back home, I'd left, and, you know, we'd run out somewhere, left my dad home with the kid, and I came back home, and he had these pictures on his phone where he had obviously gotten too close to the moose. He had gone outside into the yard with the thing, and oh, I was so mad. I was like, I told you. They can be fast, they charge, especially when they're with their children. They are scary, but they are beautiful. The first moose I had, unfortunately, was with a dead moose. I was on a little road trip in Fairbanks, and somebody right in front of us hit and killed a moose, and it was still alive but dying when I saw it, and it was really awful. And so you have to be careful of them in that respect. We have deer, lots and lots of bears here where I live. So the wildlife is obviously a big draw for some people. Oh, we get to see a lot of whales and sea lions, and you know, I'm right on the ocean, so I can't see them from my house, but you can see whales and sea lions and things like that. Lots of ocean life here. It's very common to go, you know, they have whale watching trips, wildlife viewing trips, and things that you can go on that aren't terribly expensive, not as expensive as I think they are elsewhere, in the summertime, in the springtime and summertime here. And you will pretty much always see orcas. And that's really an amazing experience. And this place is lousy with eagles and ravens. Eagles, of course, are amazing, but ravens are fascinating too. And you can see lots of them, you know, on our drive from here to downtown, from where we live to downtown. I will very often see a dozen or more bald eagles, like up on the light posts, out in, you know, wetlands, stuff like that. They're just all over the place. So there's the wildlife, and there's the clean air. And the other less obvious thing that I like about living here is Alaska is it's very Republican, which I am not. But there are also plenty of conservationists and, you know, hippie type people, which I also am not. But what I like about Alaska is it's really what I call live and let live. It is a place where, although there are lots of Republicans, and there are lots of churches, and there are also lots of bars, lots of hunting and fishing. There's also lots of, you know, like I said, hippie-ish people. There's a lot of artsy people. We have a lot of artists here, a lot of, particularly in Juneau, a lot of musicians. We have a lot of opportunities to see concerts and things like that. People come here because it's the capital. But Alaska is a place where the basic value here is that you get to be yourself, whatever that is. Not the friendliest place, for example, to be gay or transgender, but friendlier than you'd think, because the basic philosophy in Alaska is, okay, I might be religious, conservative, etc. I'm not. I'm just saying, as an example, I might be these things, and I don't like those things that you might be, but that's okay. I'm going to let you be you, and you're going to let me be me. And definitely in Alaska, even though we always vote Republican, not me, as a state, we always vote Republican, like in presidential. We're not, you know, a swing state by any means. It's just different. Alaskans are very, very, I mean, almost libertarian. But Alaskans are just very like, I'm going to do me and you're going to do you, and we're going to leave each other alone. And I really like that. You know, I live up here with my husband, and it used to be with my son, with my husband, and we don't have any family in the vicinity. My in-laws lived in a different part of Alaska, and my family doesn't live here. And it's not that I don't love my family or anything like that, but I just, I value our space. And I'm just not somebody who wants to be like having to deal with extended family on a weekly basis or whatever. And so it's very nice, like I can go visit my parents. I make a big effort and it's costs a lot of money to go visit them. But when I visited them, I'm there on purpose. I'm focused on them. I'm not like going, oh God, they want us to come over to dinner again. You know what I mean? Because they're not here. And which, was most of my reason for getting out of Alaska. I love my parents. Nothing against my parents. It's just me. I am, somebody who I am live and let live. Like I just don't want to deal with, it's more about the extended relatives and stuff than the parents. I just want to focus on my husband and my son and myself. And I don't want to have regular, like weekly, etc. obligations to family outside of my husband and my son. It was actually pretty hard for me. It was nice in some ways, but it was kind of hard for me to have my son in San Diego surrounded by lots and lots of extended family. It was nice in a way. It was kind of nice. And I'm glad we did that. But, it was just so happened that that's what we did. It was not purposeful. We didn't plan it that way. It just happened that way. And I'm glad that we had that experience. I'm really glad for my parents that they got to participate in that and be there for that. It was really special. It was a really special time. But I'm really glad I don't live anywhere near them anymore, or any of the other extended family, just because it lets us be us. And when I do interact with them, I can like throw my whole self into it and really just like I'm on vacation. I don't have to like, oh, we gotta go to Sunday night dinner. I don't really feel like it, but we gotta go. I don't have to do that. So, and Alaska's full of people like me, who are like, there's, obviously there's a lot of like families and stuff who've been here for generations. There's, Native Alaskans and other people who've been here for generations and have extended family here just like anywhere else. But there's also a lot of people. Alaska has a lot of transplants. So you meet a lot of people who are like, up here for some job or for the military or the Coast Guard or school or whatever temporarily. And so it's like full of people like me, even though on the surface maybe you wouldn't think so, because they might be religious and they might be Republican, any number of things that I am not. They might like to hunt and fish and really like their guns and smoke a lot of pot. None of those things sound like me. But what is like me is you be you and I'll be me, and we're going to be fine in the same room together, and we're going to just, neither of us is going to try to change together. And that is the less obvious thing that is really great about Alaska, is basically the spirit of independence that is very much a theme for living in Alaska. Self-reliance, independence, live and let live. You be you and I'll be me, and we are going to get along just fine because we have boundaries. And nobody is going to be telling me, what I can do in my own backyard, for example. So, we do have some city ordinances and stuff like that, but it's a lot looser up here in most places than a lot of the rules you have in some place like California about what you can do with your lawn or have to do with your lawn, or, whether you can have peeling paint on the side of your house, etc. There's a lot fewer rules, and which, has its downsides, but I've got some neighbors that I wish would do something a little bit different. But it has its upsides too. So, because if I have to leave you alone, that means you have to leave me alone. So anyway, I think next time I talk about Alaska, unless somebody throws a question out about me, I might get a little bit, talk a little bit about what's currently happening in Alaska in a few ways, like politics, but not just politics, but economics and things. Things are changing here. I sent my son out of state to school for a reason. I don't think he would have accepted going here anyway. But because he's very much like me, he's like, Mom, I want something different. But you know, there are good reasons right now to not go to school in state. And but there's things happening, and I might talk a little about that next time. But that's for next time. If you have any questions though, please shoot them at me, because I'd be happy to talk about that instead, or too. So anyway, I love you all, and I will see you in a few weeks. My son is coming home for spring break for a week, for 9 days about. So I won't be doing another episode till definitely not this month. Probably early April will be what I'm going for. Maybe mid-April though. So anyway, I will talk to you later. Have a good day. Bye-bye.